All right, let's talk about some more practical things now that we have talked about looking at your book and what you should be examining in your book. And I talked a lot about looking at the literary criticism, but let's remind you how to do that. So we're going to look at how you access things through the library in case you've forgotten Miss Lord's lecture that she came in and did with the class. I'm going to give you some examples about good ways to take notes, and we're going to look at what you need to have for your annotated bibliography. To start with, you need to access the Yorktown Library Canvas page. Ideally, like you can hit it through your course tab. Hopefully everybody is enrolled in it. If you are not enrolled in it, you need to go to the Yorktown High School homepage. It looks like this. Hit the button up here at the top that says library, and then you can self-enroll. That's literally the first button when you get there. This is what the homepage looks like. You would scroll down, homepage, hit research databases. It's going to come up with the high school databases. She mostly went through, she touched on JSTOR. I love JSTOR, but it is like very, very academic. She looked at kind of Gale literature criticism and Gale literature, which are great places to start and just even to skim through titles to see what the most popular thing that comes up about your book is. I have gone through and looked at some stuff for Jane Eyre, and I can definitely tell in looking through what some of these resources are that the most kind of popular thing that people write about are definitely like the colonial aspect. This one is literally called, I know you can't quite see it, but Colonialism and Figurative Strategy in Jane Eyre, No Voices Hushed, deathbed scenes in Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre and Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. So like this would be kind of cool and interesting, but I might not pull anything useful from it. But you want to be looking through, this is a really interesting one that was what I came back from, avoiding the boring, boredom, beauty, and narrative in Jane Eyre. If you have access to a printer and once you know that you really like a particular article, printing it out and highlighting I think is the best. But if you're just going to be working from Google Docs, I suggest having a Google document just called Sample Running Notes. And remember that if you're looking in the library databases, when you open something up, like let's look at withheld speech, and let me move your screen back over here. It'll come up with the right citation for you. It's the MLA 9th, and you can just hit select, copy, and I would copy and paste this into your running notes. It is formatted correctly. You do need to do that very fun tab over to kind of get it all right, but then you just have it there. And you are going to, if you're doing this right, as I said in my last video, you are going to look at or skim through more articles than you actually use. So, for example, I have this one of Heroines and Victims, Jean Rhys and Jane Eyre. So I copied and pasted that over, and then I did just a small description, highlighted in a different color. Overall, more about Wide Sargasso Sea than Jane Eyre. Could pull a few quotes about the characterization of Bertha from the original novel. So if I'm going to lean into talking about Bertha and colonialism, that would be a great one to go back and pull some. If I was on my game, I'd actually have pulled some quotes. This one, Avoiding the Boring. Excellent deep analysis of the narrative structure, emphasis on aesthetic. That might be a little too much for this paper, but I know it's there. Again, you should probably actually pull some quotes if you think it's going to be useful. And then I could look through this one, Unuttered, Withheld Speech. The metaphor of the author as a speaker, as one who must seek to find his or her own voice in writing, is a truism of the creative. So this is interesting because this is going to be about talking about the fact that Charlotte Bronte wrote mostly in like the first person. So there could be, if I was going to talk about probably Jane as like a central character, and I could also definitely talk about this if we're talking about Jane Eyre as kind of like a metaphor and embodiment of the author. This is very high level though. Withholding speech, it's very kind of like abstract. But, so that might be one if I was going to go that direction, but that is definitely a challenging one. You should add some notes. You should end up with a document that has a ton of these in it. You're not going to use all of them. Some of them you're going to open and they're just not going to be relevant to what you want to talk about. So, for example, if I'm going through this and I'm starting to think I'm going to do the like colonial aspect. Like this, deathbed scenes, like comparison with Louisa May Alcott is probably not where I'm at. It might be good to look in case though. So you should have sample running notes. This is not graded. This is just when I did research, it's good to build this in. Don't skim through like 10 articles and have written nothing down and then you can't tell the difference between some of them. Like even just doing like 2 sentences about each one so you can remember like, oh, what was that one that had that great stuff about first person narration in Jane Eyre? That's what you should do. This will then help you when you need to turn it into an annotated bibliography. So an annotated bibliography gets put in MLA format. So you're going to do that thing where you do the last name and page number in the upper right-hand corner. Then you're going to do your 4-line MLA header, which only goes on the first page. So your name, teacher's name, the name of the class, and the date it's being turned in. You're going to give us a title of your annotated bibliography, like come up with one. Don't put title of annotated bibliography. And then this is an example of kind of one annotated bibliography, or one annotation. So you have the MLA citation. So it's like a works cited page, but you've put in like a paragraph or 2 under each citation. So this is not for Jane Eyre, but this is a book. So we have the full MLA citation here. And then you include a paragraph that covers, and this is in your directions, so I'll scroll back up to it, what the source is, annotation, and how it will be used in your essay. So you would spend a couple of sentences describing, like, this article is primarily about how the first person in use in Jane Eyre emphasizes the difference between Jane Eyre's thoughts and what she is actually allowed to say out loud in the narrative of the text. That's what it's primarily about. But then I'm going to talk about how I'm going to use it in the book, because I'm not necessarily interested in the dichotomy between Jane's internal thoughts and external thoughts, but I am interested in her as kind of a metaphor or an embodiment of the author, Charlotte Bronte, if I was taking that kind of authorial lens approach. So I would then talk about how I could use it to talk about that it was a way for Charlotte Bronte to express her feelings about, say, the, lackluster educational system that led to the death of her 2 older sisters, and like the metaphor of Mr. Brocklehurst. So you have 5 to 7 sentences that explain what the source is. This is an article from a literary magazine that primarily is focused on this, and how it's going to be, how I'm going to use it. Their thesis might not support my thesis, but something they say in there might be able to be used for my piece. So remember, you need 5 sources total, and those should be, if you're doing your work on time, sources that you know you will be able to use and will be good for your paper. No more than 7. You don't need to impress everybody with 15 sources. That's too much work. We do have a couple links to the explanation of annotated bibliographies from Purdue University, and we have this, and again, this is up online on your Canvas page. This example, it shows you a really well done annotation here. So that should have given you how to get to the library database, should have given you my idea about notes you should be taking. I can't emphasize enough that if you just go in and read 15 articles, it's going to be very confusing. And also what we're looking from an annotated bibliography. I will end with you by reminding you how to do your heading for your MLA page. So you start at the top of your page and you put your cursor up in that header area and you click. If for whatever reason that doesn't work, you can go over to insert header and footer. But up here, we're going to justify to the right. You are going to put your last name. Mine is Davis. It doesn't have a capital A there though. I'm going to hit a space, and then I'm going to hit insert. I'm going to go down to page numbers, and I'm going to hit for the ones that come in the upper right-hand corner. There we go. I'm going to click out of it because that 4-line MLA format is not what I need. And then, or I don't need that. The 4-line header only goes on the first page. You don't need to put it up here in the space because it does not need to happen on every page. But remember, we're going to write in Times New Roman, 12-point font. And when we're actually doing this formally, so you would do your name. My name is Claire Davis. It'd be great if I could spell my name. You're going to do your teacher's name. I'm going to do Mrs. Gibbs Jones. You're going to do the class. Dual Enrollment English. And you're going to do the date it's due, which is going to be somewhere, I'm going to go ahead and say 26th of January. It's probably going to be due before this, 2024. Need to get used to doing that. And I'm going to spell January correctly. And that's how you do an MLA header. Thank you for watching. Bye.